everybody? This is Grant from State of the Spark, and it is Monday. And why am I loving this Monday? You could assume that I'm super pumped. Why? Because if you watch this show at all, you know I'm super pumped. But I'm especially pumped today because it's an awesome, glorious day. It's nice and cool outside. There was a breeze. We've got a high in the 70s. Welcome to Florida. Yes, this is live from Florida. I've got my awesome cup of gratitude. That's why I'm pumped. I got to talk to you about MC Hammer and math this morning, which I'm super pumped about. But I'll tell you what I'm really pumped about. I'll tell you what I'm really pumped about. I'm really, really pumped about the show this morning and talking about imagination. I'm super pumped to be talking about imagination because I think a lot of us need to return to imagination. So yes, we're going to be talking about November and fresh beginnings, fresh endings. We're going to be talking about MC Hammer and math. And we're going to be talking about a quintillion meteorite and how I think that's going to push us into space. And then we're going to talk about an acronym you can remember how to absolutely maximize imagination. And let me tell you something, in a world of pragmatists, in a world of people that are so focused on the right thing to do and the right thing to be and the right opinion and the right whatever, for someone to be able to utilize their imagination, I'm telling you, it's a superpower you can wield. So we're going to push into that today. But before we get started with anything, we've got a cup of gratitude. Ba-da-da. Here we go. So what I am grateful for this morning is I am super grateful for November air. It's crisp outside. It's fresh. And November is fantastic because we all know that in our very commercial world, we all know that December is kind of consumed by the holidays. It's kind of consumed. And yes, there's a lot of work to get done. And yes, things are wrapping up and corporation stuff to close out budgets and plan budgets and blah, blah, blah. We know all of that. But like from Thanksgiving and Black Friday on, we know that a lot of massive moves is kind of delayed till January. This is good. This is a good thing because starting in November forward, you can begin thinking about your goals. You can begin wrapping things up. It's actually a very natural fall season. Remember, Thanksgiving was meant to be a celebration that the harvest had been collected. You know what? This year is wrapping up. When Thanksgiving happened and the fall celebrations occurred, it was often acknowledging that the hard work of spring and summer was on pause, that we're supposed to be celebrating the fruits of our labor and dwelling on what's next. I love November 1st for this date because, yes, technically, last quarter begins in October, but I am grateful this morning that November comes around because we're almost in a slide and now there's a time pressure. Thanksgiving's coming, shopping's coming, all that stuff is coming. So you've only got about 2.5 good weeks, maybe 3, to close out and close loops. That's why I love it. So I am grateful for the month of November. Revisit your goals from the beginning of the year. This month, November 1st is the best. October, you can set your goals and then still have a strong October. But November 1st, you really need to have goals to review what your intentionality was in the beginning of the year. Review your goals from the beginning of the year. Set intentionalities for what you're going to accomplish, considering the holidays still, though. You got to still consider the holidays, and you can't be overly ambitious. You can set goals for health and fitness, sure. You can set goals for relationships, but I recommend you tone down too aggressive of goals around your business, and then you can start amping up your goals for your spiritual. So remember, that's the TLE, the health and fitness, the relationships, the work, and the spirituality. And more than anything, permit yourself to start dreaming about 2021. And that's what we're going to talk about today, imagination and how to kick back off your imagination. So here's my cup of gratitude for the crisp, lovely month of November. Here we go. Ba-da-da. So in other news, I mentioned this article last week, I think it was, and there was $250 billion meteorite floating or asteroid floating in the asteroid belt. And I noted this last week. First off, I want to make a note, and the reason I bring this up in other news is this. I misspoke. I said it was a quadrillion dollar. The estimated value was a quadrillion dollars. I was wrong. It's quintillion. And just so that you understand how much quintillion is, I've done this little math equation, which I'm going to put right here in the comments for you. The first number right here is what a quintillion looks like. This is what a $1 billion looks like. And the reason I put the reason I put this here is this. Remember what got Elon Musk started. He got PayPal. He sold PayPal for $180 million. And when he realized what he could do with his $180 million, and what was that? It was tackle a $1 billion industry. He realized he could invest half of his money in PayPal, and he basically spent a little bit of money liquidating some debt or paying off some debt, but then he split his $180 million roughly between SpaceX and Tesla. Both of these were $1 billion industries. And if a brain with some money can throw it less than $1 billion, it was like roughly $60 million each he jump-started his companies with. Actually, it was more like 80. I'm sorry. It was more like $80 million. He started both of those companies. Each of those companies were about $80 million. If I can invest $80 million and roll that into $2 billion industries, he knew the stakes were worth it. So he looked at $1 billion companies and realized, wow, it's worth it. Let's tackle it. The reason I throw this equation up here, 1 quintillion divided by a billion, this, just so you understand how vast this is, the stakes are, what is this? 1 million. The stakes are 1 billion times bigger than the stakes that got Elon Musk to build SpaceX like he was. Here's my point about this. This is why this is in other news. This is in other news because I am predicting here, first and foremost, that whether or not this particular asteroid draws us into space is irrelevant. What is relevant is the stakes off-world are so high for the average entrepreneur that if Elon was willing to spend $80 million just to enter $1 billion industry, how much more will people spend to get to a quintillion dollar payday on one asteroid out of thousands, if not more asteroids available to us? The market is much bigger off-world than all-world. So you heard it here first. The phrase, I'm writing about this phrase called id astra. Like the phrase ad astra means to the stars. And the idea that I've come up with is id astra. There's a whole new psyche that the new frontier, available to most of the average people, is off-world. And I believe this will create a new baseline psychology for our species. Id astra. You heard it here first. So that's other news number 1. In other news number 2, Ed Sheeran's art is up for auction. Here we go. So Ed Sheeran, yes, in some of his COVID time off, he's been painting a painting a day for 30 days. And one of those is called Dab 2 2020. His nickname for his father has been, since he was a child, Dab. And this particular piece of artwork that Ed Sheeran, yes, the musician, is doing is called Dab 2, named after his father. It's a lovely, actually, piece of abstract art. Let's put it here. And I've got props for Ed Sheeran for this, because he's donating the proceeds to a foundation he follows, that the money goes to children and young people, which he thinks there's a lot of need for that. Now, here's the quote that I love from Ed Sheeran on this. Here it is. He says, "It's something that makes me happy, that no one else needs to judge. There's no part of this creative process that people judge, especially if you're doing it for yourself." This is the exact same reason I picked up painting again. This is the exact same reason I don't care if someone judges this. There's a no judgment zone. It's so cathartic. There we go. It's so cathartic to actually do this piece, do these materials, do these paintings. It's so cathartic. So I've got props to know that Ed Sheeran's also out there and making his art available for auction and use. So that's fantastic. And our third piece of other news, yes, MC Hammer is in to the maths. Here we go. Is MC Hammer pumped about partial differential equations? You betcha. So in today's piece of other news, they have found that AI has cracked partial differential equations. This is insanity. This is insanity. So in short, partial differential equations are a supremely complex area of math. They're so complex, they can help us solve things like planetary orbits, plate tectonics, air turbulence, but it is a very difficult, long, complicated way to do math. And we've been able to conceptualize it. We've been able to write it down and put it on chalkboards and kind of think our way through it. It takes a long time for a human to do. So then we've been able to put these differential equations in computers, but it still takes computers a long time to solve what's known as PDEs, partial differential equations. What's the value? Why do we care? Well, this sorts of math allows us to predict things like earthquakes, like air turbulence that a plane might encounter, like climate change. But the value is in prediction. Can these math equations help us predict? Well, yes, but the math takes so long to solve that by the time you solve the math, the event would have already passed. Enter artificial intelligence. So they've tasked AI to actually solve these partial differential equations, and now it's solving how to solve them faster. And in so doing, it's now able to create predictive models of weather, air turbulence, planetary orbits, plate tectonics, earthquakes, tsunamis, and actually make useful predictions with that math. And the reason this was so important, how do you know how important this is? It's so important that MC Hammer, yes, the MC Hammer, shared this news. Now, I guess these days MC Hammer has been investing in technology, and no, he's not, to my knowledge, a mathematician. He might be, but he so geeked out about this that this is the cutting edge. Now, this will also rapidly magnify the intelligence of AI in a significant way. So you are actually witnessing the acceleration of the acceleration, how to accelerate AI itself. Here's the article on this, and it even has MC Hammer's tweet on the differential equation. Boom! There you go. And that might, well, actually, I have one piece of other news, and that is this. Listen, folks. If you watch the show at all in the morning, if you watch the show in the afternoon, whenever you watch the show, my friend, you need to know that it is changing locations. You need to know that the Spark Show is going to end up at the State of the Spark page. So right down here, boop, you need to go to facebook.com/State of the Spark, like it and follow it, because the show will start to be on that within the next week or so. So pay attention. Within the next week or so, it's going to be happening there. So go there. Actually like it. Follow us over there, because I don't want to miss our awesome interaction in the chats we get from you. Okay, let's talk about imagination. So we had this conversation last week because we had the full moon, beaver moon, micro moon, blue moon, and what was the other one? Hunter's moon. The moon on Halloween was all of those things and more. And it brought up a conversation that I used to imagine myself as Teen Wolf. Good morning, Ryan. I hope you're doing fantastic, sir. Thanks for dropping by. So as a kid, I don't know about you, but I used to imagine myself as superheroes or as movie heroes, not necessarily superheroes, but movie heroes. Specifically, I remember one of the first times I ever was completely drawn into an imagination, and that was when I envisioned myself as Teen Wolf. You see, my mom had gotten us this huge wall mural, and that wall mural was floating in space. And I remember as a kid loving sitting on my waterbed, floating, and I would watch myself, I would imagine myself as an astronaut. Like deeply imagine myself as an astronaut floating in space. But it was hard to conceptualize. Then I saw the movie Teen Wolf, and Michael J. Fox went from a complete nerd to the life of the party, the life of the school, getting chicks just because he was Teen Wolf, right? And I so craved that attention. I so craved those rewards of having hot girlfriends and different things like that as a kid, that I literally got sucked into these imaginations. And so whenever I'd see the moon come up into my window, I would fantasize that I was Teen Wolf. I would imagine becoming Teen Wolf. And then I would imagine these things so richly that they would fill me so full of joy that when I entered the real world, I entered a type of depression. This type of imagination carried with me whenever I'd go to theme parks. I would love to crave to be in the theme park shows. I didn't want to be a visitor. I wanted to be in the shows. So I would have fantasized this and imagined this. And I'd sometimes leave theme parks depressed. It caused me to not want to be in theme parks because I wanted it so bad. Well, thankfully, I found theater. And through high school and in early college, I did plenty of theater and public speaking. I got involved in public speaking, and then now I could be part of the show. Hey, State of the Spark, my public speaking today, my coaching and training today is a result of that imagination. So I had this imagination. Now, I've gone through life today, and I coach people, and I observe, especially now, especially post-COVID, people are weighed down with depression. People don't know what to expect after the election. They don't know what to expect coming out of COVID. They don't know what to expect at all. And so I noticed that people are kind of like, they're doing one of two things. They're in a malaise. They're just like, oh my gosh, if only I could just get to the end of the day. Or worse, they're depressed. I don't have anyone to talk to, they think. Or you talk to them and they're kind of dismissive about goals. State of the Spark is all about big goals, dreaming bigger. Why? Because the world needs big dreamers. That quote, don't go out and seek what the world needs and meet it. Go out and seek what makes you alive, because what the world needs is people who are alive and radiating purpose. We need to be infectiously full of vision, full of big dreams. That's what we need to be full of. That's what the world needs more of. It's people who are like electric with a dream. But I meet people and they're like, nah, my big dream, Grant, is taking care of my kids. Well, one day your kids are going to be out. You're going to have an empty nest. They're going to be living their own life. And I know you don't stop being a parent, but what then for you? What is your big dream? I noticed that COVID has done a lot of things to society, but the big thing we have allowed it to do, the big thing we've allowed this election cycle to do is wear our dreams down. And that needs to end. So today I want to remind you of a few things. We need to return to excitement because it's November. And 2021 is around the corner. And if you don't come out swinging for 2021, you have a big missed opportunity. There's a huge opportunity for us to start over. Yes, we're coming into, in Florida, fall and winter. Yes, we're coming into November, December, which is a time where people get reclusive, and it's what we call in Spark a radiate season. It's when we dwell on the lessons that we've learned for the year. But you need to start brewing your dreamer. You need to start activating the part of your heart and your mind that allows you to dream big and go, no, we believe in doing big things. We've allowed people around us to withdraw dreaming, and as such, we have withdrawn our ability to dream. We need to return to imagination. We need to return to picturing ourselves with new thoughts, new ideas, new breakthroughs, new fitness levels, new relationships with people we massively respect. How do we do that? Albert Einstein was asked how he came up with the theory of relativity. Like, where do you just up and do that? And you know what his answer was? I was riding my bike. You see, right now, some of you, Marissa says, yes, preach. I say, yes, I love you, my baby. I love my wife. I was snugging her earlier, and she's awesome. Albert Einstein said, I thought of relativity riding my bike. Me and Marissa took this trip to North Carolina. Suzanne says, yes, yes, yes. Good morning, Suzanne. I hope you're doing fantastic. Me and Marissa took this trip to North Carolina, and I always struggle to unwind, but usually by just it takes me about a week and a half to 2 weeks to actually unwind into vacation. Marissa knows this about me. And it's usually then that I start letting go of my daily grind and start dreaming again. People like me, A-types, want to fight our way out of a bag. We want to fight our way out of COVID. We want to fight our way out of election cycle. Good God. We get sucked into all kinds of crap. But the truth is, like Albert Einstein, vision, solutions, breakthroughs happen when you go take a flip and walk, when you go hike in the woods, when you go ride your bike. We can't live like that all the time. But that's where imagination, we have forgotten how to imagine. We remembered how to debate politics. We remembered how to fight over whether we should wear masks or not. We remembered that we got to grind, or we're learning just to retreat. The middle ground is living in a thriving, healthy, abundant imagination. Positive imagination raises your neurochemistry. Meditation is kind of this neutral ground, right? Meditation is like good for focus and good for staying on track. Imagination is like meditation times 10 because you also get the positive neurochemicals, but you're also doing positive mental rehearsal. You're also activating your reticular activating system to start looking for that unconscious thing you're envisioning. You can program your imagination in your unconscious mind. Meditation sometimes, when people talk about it, it sounds so stodgy and not fun. Think of imagination as meditation with the best friends you could ever imagine. So here we go. I've got an acronym for you, and it's FAST, F-A-S-T. And it's how to reprime the joy that is imagination. As adults, we forget to imagine. Oh, you're just imagining things. Yes, I am. How often do we say that to young people? Oh, you're just imagining things. How often have I brought an idea to my team or my staff or to clients, and I go, you know what? We should reach out to Matthew McConaughey. Why? Because he's launching a new book. He's doing a ton of podcasts. I wonder if I couldn't get him on this show. Oh, you're just imagining things. I know I am. That's how we solve shit. Sorry, it's Monday morning. I should watch my mouth. That's how we solve stuff. Is by imagining. Do not be a person who stifles people's imagination. Ryan says imagination is something many lose as adults, unfortunately. You're right. I heard a great quote by Jim Quick in his awesome book, Limitless. Jennifer Smith is laughing happy tears. Don't be a person that stifles imagination, my friends. Be a person that encourages it. Part of the reason I'm painting is to reconnect with imagination. Part of the reason me and Marissa adventure is to reconnect with imagination. Why? Albert Einstein said, you cannot solve problems at the same level of thinking you had when you discovered that problem. We've got a problem. We're in a malaise. We've got a problem. We're in the middle of freaking political season. We've got a problem. Our businesses are struggling. Our relationships are kind of loosey-goosey and all over the place. Our effectiveness is waning. And I'm telling you what, tell the truth in the comments. Confess if this is you. Your self-confidence is low. You're not sure you've got another round in you. You're not sure that you've got a home run or even a base hit in your bag. Confess the truth. You're not sure you've got another sprint to your fitness and nutrition goals. You're not sure that you can level up that marriage or that relationship. You have waned. I'm telling you, tell the truth, shame the devil. You have waned in your self-confidence. I'm confessing that I have. And I am preaching to myself this morning that you need to return. The only way through this, when we say dream big, what we're saying is give yourself permission to imagine. When people stifle imagination, that's like them walking up to you and be like, you shouldn't be meditating. Of course we should. I know, you and I both know I'm not going to meditate for 12 hours a day. It might do us some good, but I'm not going to do it. You know that when I say I'm imagining, it's in a certain span of time. And yes, I'll get back to reality in a minute, but we've got to dream of who we can be. We've got to dream big of what can be done. Yes, we'll bring the hard work. Yes, we'll bring the first principles. Yes, we'll bring the practice, but don't approach those things with oh, well. People that don't imagine things, they approach life like this. Oh, well, let's do the hard work. People that imagine things, people that are strong about that go, man, think of what could be. Now let me gather that energy from the future self and put that energy into my heart right now. And now I'm going to think of positive solutions and problems, positive outcomes. So here we go. Here's the acronym FAST. You ready for this? Number 1, unabashedly feed your imagination. Unabashedly feed your imagination. This is why I read slightly diverse sets of news. When we do other news, what is Grant doing with science? What is Grant doing with art? I'm feeding my imaginations, my dear Spark citizens. You feed your imagination. Yes, you need to be studying your topic. Absolutely. But you absolutely need to be studying just outside that topic. Have a hobby. Have a hobby. Have a hobby that's different than your work. That's why I love painting. That's why I love reading fiction. Read fiction before bed. Read science fiction before bed. Read industry fiction before bed. A great book if you're in sales or small business. I see some realtors on here. Yes, if you're realtors, read a book, The Greatest Networker Who Ever Lived. Yes, it's about network marketing, but the fiction is powerful. Read that fiction. Feed your imagination. Feed it stuff. Now, here's the thing. Once I feed my imagination, I then purge anything that's not on topic. Feed it, but then purge it. It's okay to read diverse things, but then purge it and get to work. It's still in that subconscious, but it's not distracting your vision for today. So read diverse news. Read news from China. Read science fiction news. Write, have a hobby, have an artistic hobby, and then purge it when you sit down to work. You're still going to feel positive. You're still going to feel great, but you're also going to have creativity kicking around, and your reticular activating system, your RAS, also known as your reticular activating cortex, is going to have a radar that's going to be looking for better problem solving. Read great biographies. That'll feed your imagination. Marissa loves reading biographies of people who have gone places and done things before. Feed that imagination. Feed that imagination. That's F, feed. Feed that imagination. A, acknowledge that there are different ways to imagine. I won't go into this in depth. In fact, I have an article link for you, and I want you to read it later, because just like there are multiple intelligences, there are also multiple ways to imagine things. So there's intellectual, just as an example, I won't go into this in depth, but there's intellectual imagination. There's empathy. Empathy is a form of imagination. Can you imagine what it would be like to be this person and actually close your eyes and go there? Can you imagine what it must be like to be me? Can I imagine what it must be like to be Michelle Harvey at Catapult? Can I imagine what it must be like for President Trump, candidate Biden? Can I imagine what it must be like for other people? That's a form of imagination. Strategic imagination. This is what I do quite a bit. Though I can't act on everything, I have a very vivid imagination about market opportunities. And, I imagine this could work and this could work. And I put some things together. I have a synthetic imagination that way. There's one I never even heard of until today called effectuative imagination. Read that link. There's 8 different known types of imagination. But here, for contrast, dreaming, symbology is a form of imagination. My favorite type of imagination is fantastical future visioning. I literally, just like I meditate, we'll get into this in a second, I actually close my eyes and go there. And like I mentioned earlier in the show, can I have, Matthew McConaughey on the show? He's selling a new book and he wants to be on in front of as many audiences as possible. Can I make a case and get that guy on my show? That'd be super fun. It'd be great for popularity for the show. I would just be curious how this guy deals with goals. And then we'll talk a little bit about his book. Can I envision that? Can I envision talking with him? Can I envision writing a letter to his people? Can I do that? I love fantastical imagination. I love it. I think you should do it too. And it doesn't take a lot of time. And I love doing it until I feel good. I do it so that I feel good. I encourage you to do it until you feel good. So F is feed your imagination. A in the word FAST is acknowledge that there are different ways to imagine. Acknowledge different ways to imagine. S, set time aside for imagining. Imagining is important. It actually creates it creates new neural pathways. When you imagine, it creates new neural pathways for problem solving. This is why Albert Einstein said imagination is the most important skill. It's the most important skill of God. Imagination is more important than knowledge, he said. Why? Because it's problem solving. But abundantly, it's not like, problem solving. It's more like, I'm problem solving. Awesome. It's open. It's powerful. So set aside, S in the word FAST stands for set aside time for imagining. Like meditation, begin with 5 minutes. Set your Fitbit or set an alarm for 5 minutes and sit down and close your eyes and go there. Go to that place in your mind. Go to that place in your mind and close your eyes. Set your clock for 5 minutes. Set an alarm. Imagine succeeding. Imagine feeling great. Imagine celebrating succeeding at your goal. Do all of this in a 5-minute stretch. Imagine yourself meeting your favorite celebrity. Imagine yourself dining on a patio with friends on a hillside, a cool morning hillside in the Swiss Alps, on a plaza with your closest friends. You're all traveling together. Imagine it. You're going to start exploring the hillside later, in the little shops later. But this morning, it's about 9:30. It's still shaded. You're wearing a little bit of a layer. It's cool out. And you're sipping coffee with these people that you've always wanted to sip coffee with. Vishen Lakhiani's there. He's a great guy I have a great amount of respect for. Brendan Burchard's there. He's a guy I have a great amount of respect there. My wife is there. My friend James and Dory's are there. Adam and Brittany are floating around having adventures somewhere. And we're going to meet up later to go over our goals for our company that year. Hey, man, I can imagine that. I can imagine that in 5 minutes or less. Set time aside. F is for feed your knowledge or feed your imagination. A is acknowledge that there's different ways to imagine. S is set time aside to imagine. And the T, trace. Backtrack today's actions to tomorrow's imagination. So basically, you're going to trace yourself from this imagination that I just described, for example, on a Swiss hillside. I just described this imagination that I could do in 5 minutes or less. And I feel so good about that idea. I want to act on it. Trace today's actions to tomorrow's vision. So this is how you do it. We spent 5 minutes imagining this palazzo with these friends that I have currently and these friends I want in the future. I imagine them. So then I'm going to backtrace and pick a milestone. If that's 2.5 years out, okay, what do I do in 18 months? Well, 18 months from today, well, it's going to be November. It's going to be like spring 2022. Well, then what am I going to imagine? I'm going to imagine me and my current friends attending an event with Vishen Lakhiani, attending an event with Brendan Burchard, building our business to the next level and celebrating these wins where we go to the beach and we're looking at our bank accounts and they've grown, and we're celebrating the new employees that we have to manage our businesses, and we're celebrating the speaking events I've had. I can go there. Do not interrupt my imagination, because everything is built on imagination first. So here we go. F.A.S.T. Feed your imagination. Read fiction. Read diverse news. A, acknowledge that there are multiple types of imagination. Don't get hung up that it's all fantasy. It could be intellectual imagination. It could be dreaming. S, set time aside, just like meditation, for fantasy. Literal fantasy. Having a successful sales appointment with that person you're going to meet with. Fantasize. Imagine it going well. Come out and then do the hard work of prepping. Jessica says, good morning, Jessica, and sunshine to you as well. And Jessica, I promise you, thanks for stopping by. I promise I'm going to post the post you sent me today. It's on my to-do list. I'm posting it today. Thank you so much. And T, trace your steps from this imagination you have that's powerful to different milestones, and give each milestone the imagination treatment and enjoy it. Marissa's watching. Marissa Love. Imagine us hiking. Then imagine us celebrating. And I'm not Mr. Frowny Pants, but I'm celebrating. And let's backtrack that to milestones of us talking about things and working through things and working out and getting fit. And then your hikes with your girls in the Grand Canyon. Like, let's fantasize and imagine all of that. Is the T for trace. F-A-S-T. Feed, acknowledge, set time aside, trace your steps. You got to give this thing action. Listen, imagination is wasted if it doesn't translate into positive emotions and actual action. It's got to turn into action. Remember, State of the Spark is about igniting lives of explosive significance. We're not here to blow hot air. We're not here to spin our wheels. We're not here to get you stuck on just dreaming about the big picture. It's got to turn into action. It's got to turn into action. So F-A-S-T, how to turn your imagination and give it traction. F-A-S-T, feed your imagination. acknowledge that there's different types of imagination, set time aside, just like meditation, and go deep with how you feel. And T, trace your steps from that fantasy to today's actions, and then fantasize today's actions. I did want to make this last point. It's the 1st of November and I'm on fire, as you can tell. I recommend that you get out there the 1st of every month. Go back and backtrace your goals for the year. You got to get aligned. You got to do some alignment. Backtrack with the goals you set at the beginning of the year, some of the milestones of how you've done each quarter, what your goals are this quarter. It's November. It's not the start of a quarter. Go back to the quarterly goals you set in October. Check your alignment. Then fantasize how you feel at the end of the month. Then fantasize on what you've achieved. Fantasize what you've achieved. Fantasize the people you've talked about. Fantasize the income you've created and the joy you've created in other people with your services or your products. And then fantasize again at the end of this week. How do you feel on Friday? Are you like, oh, so worn down? Or are you like, you know what? I'm doing good and I'm glad to go out and spend time with my loved ones on Friday and Saturday and rejuvenate myself through helpful hobbies and helpful work. Fantasize that. It's Monday. Fantasize it. And then fantasize tonight. Imagine how you feel tonight at 5:30 or 6 or 10 or whenever you stop. Fantasize that moment. Opening up a drink or your favorite book, not just vegging out in front of the TV like we tend to do, but imagine yourself drinking a big glass of water and being proud of the effort you gave today and the progress you made. Wield your imagination as a weapon of mass creation. You heard it here first, a weapon of mass creation. Wield your imagination as a weapon of mass creation. Let it make you feel good. Give yourself permission to feel good, even in spite of the world today, and then turn that into massive action. Listen, guys, I got to get out of here. I got to have coffee with the love of my life. So go and make it a killer day. Remember, please remember the mission today, igniting lives of explosive significance. If you need help, visit stateofthespark.com. Remember to like our Facebook page because this show is moving to that location, and that's where our chats will be happening, my friends. Jump over there, like the page. We're going to start manning that page and answering messages and dealing with everything on that page coming up soon. But remember the mission, igniting lives of explosive significance. And remember, that starts with your own. Pass this show along to other people. Suzanne, thank you for the applause. Pass the show. Share it to someone you think needs to start getting their imagination going. I love you. Go make an impact today. Get going.